Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 91 of the road to 2konchess.com. Today, we are going through our Lichess Leagues games from the week, and we actually had two of them this week. I played Lone Wolf against Mr. Foxito Plays at 2046, and I played a series game against Mr. Scribbles, I believe, 1950 rated player who I've known in the league for quite some time. So today, I want to start with the Lone Wolf game, kind of let you know how I did. I actually just played this game earlier this evening. And I went into this match at 1844, and like I said, my opponent was 2046. This week was a very busy week with work, so I didn't actually have time to do any prep for my opponents, so I kind of went in just seeing what was going to happen. So I had the white pieces, so I play e4. I'm an e4 player. After my opponent goes e5, I go into the Vienna game. After knight to f6, I go into the Vienna gambit with f4, d5, f captures, knight captures, and queen to f3, which is one of the lines of the Vienna gambit. It's actually the one I learned on Gotham Chess. Past this, I don't remember as much of the theory. And my opponent played knight captures c3. And the best move here that I know is actually the move b captures c3. Now, the reason I don't particularly love to play this move is because there's issues where you're trying to play d4. I think your opponent can play moves like f5. There's moves like c5, just holding on to that square. And it's not the easiest position to play with the white pieces. So instead, what I did here was I took back with the d-pawn, preparing to get my king long castled as quickly as possible. So after our opponent played bishop to c5, I felt like something was slightly wrong. I played the move queen to g3, attacking the g7 pawn, but then also defending the e5 pawn. And after my opponent went rook to g8, once again the alarm bell started ringing, and I really didn't know what the best move was here. Now, what the engine would like me to do is just to play a move like bishop to d3, get my pieces developed, or even play knight to f3. But what I opted to do was I was like, okay, I have time, I have a tempo, and I have a pawn defending the f6 square. So I played bishop to g5, tempoing the queen. Here, my opponent went bishop to e7, and I think this already is one of the most instructive moments of the game. As you guys can see from the eval bar here on the right side of your screen, it's already 1.5 for white, and all I have to do here is continue to develop and be way ahead in development, because my opponent has now taken two moves to move their dark square bishop in the opening, in one that they already took another two moves to move three moves to move their knight in the opening, and one move to move a rook so they can't even castle. However, I thought I just wanted to get the bishops off the board, and I played bishop captures e7, which immediately loses the majority of the advantage. After queen captures e7, I long castled. I also alternatively thought about knight to f3. I thought about bishop to d3. I even thought a little bit about bishop to b5, but the reason that I declined bishop to b5 is because I didn't know what to do after the move c6. Because if I go back, our opponent then can, they can start a pawn side attack. They can also just start developing their pieces, and it feels like a better position for black because they've neutralized my attack. So, after long castles, my opponent went bishop to e6, holding on to this pawn. I played knight to f3, knight to d7, bishop to d3, g6, and rook h to f1. Just trying to take advantage of the files, get all my pieces going. All of my pieces are developed, and my king is out of the center. And I admittedly thought that I was a little bit better in this position. My opponent long castled, and I pretty confidently and kind of wrongly played the move knight to g5. Now, the reason I played knight to g5 is the knight is attacking this pawn along with the rook, as well as attacking the h7 pawn. What I kind of neglected in this position is it's not a very strong move because the bishop also defends the f7 square, and there's no way for me to really remove the bishop. So, after my opponent went rook to h8, I played queen to e3, threatening a pawn on a7, but also importantly, holding on to my weaknesses in the position. Now, in this position, you can also say that my queen is overloaded because it's defending too many things, and that is kind of a risky position to find yourself in. So after king to b8, the plan I had here that I unfortunately just miscalculated was after knight captures e6 and queen captures e6, I thought about playing the move rook to f4. I can't actually play rook to f4 because there is knight captures e5. And after a move like the engine already wants me to just play g4 and hold on for dear life, I thought if I tried to bring my rook over and threaten stuff like here, my opponent has the move knight captures d3 check. After a move like queen captures d3, I just thought my opponent gets too much play with rook h to e8. They have both their strongest pieces on the center of the board, and they're going to try and push this d-pawn. So instead, after I played rook d to e1 instead to overdefend the pawn, my opponent went rook d to e8, queen to g5, holding on and also threatening some infiltration ideas. h6 comes out, tempoing my queen. I go back to queen to f4, and the reason I particularly like queen to f4 is it has a line of diagonal on the king, and it also puts pressure on the f7 pawn. So you notice that even when I'm being attacked, and even when I have to take that half step back, I'm still trying to find these moves that keep my queen on an active square. My opponent goes rook to e7 to defend, which I thought was a little bit clumsy. The rook really has no good mobility here. And after the move c4, which I thought was the important break in the position, which was also wrong, my opponent had a chance here to play knight captures e5. This is kind of their last chance to do so. I can go c captures, queen captures, and now they have threats of taking this bishop on d3. But instead, they played the move c6, which I immediately noticed that opens up this diagonal, and now if anything takes this pawn in the center, it's going to be pinned by my queen. So I played rook to e2, threatening to meet knight captures e5 with rook f to e1, which then should win material. My opponent can also play here, a move like f6, which holds on to the knight. It does drop this pawn in the corner, but it gets into a very complex position very, very quickly. So after knight to c5 instead, which once again, it takes pressure off of this e-pawn. I kind of noticed something was wrong here. I played c captures d5, knight captures d3, c captures d3, and finally c captures d5. This was probably one of the positions where I thought about the most, as I didn't really know what my best plan was. I had considered moves like queen to f6, but after a move like, rook to c8, which then defends the rook, and maybe I was thinking king to b1, you have queen captures f6, rook captures f6, and you have to be a little bit careful so you don't lose this pawn with maybe like rook c to e8. However, after d4, my opponent met me with rook c8 check, rook to c2, rook e to c7, and here I just played the nice calm move rook to f2, defending my rook laterally. I also had considered here rook captures, and king to b1, but I was a little bit worried about the king hunt after a move like queen to c6, which then threatens moves like queen to c2 and queen to c1 if I ever move my queen off this square. So a really good example here is if for whatever reason I get greedy and I take, I guess that's fine. Let's say I come in trying to trade off the queens, queen to c2, this comes over, check, rook takes, and rook captures c1, checkmate. Now rook f2, g5, tempos the queen. I played queen to g3, just trying to control the queen's infiltration squares. After king to a8, which moves off of this diagonal. So if my opponent were to, let's say, take, and I don't know, queen to d7, I have the move e6 check, which is just lights out. Our opponent has to play queen to c7, queen takes, rook takes. I can honestly probably take, and then this position I'm promoting the pawn. But rook captures c7, my opponent plays king to a8, rook captures c7, rook captures c7 check, and rook to c2, asking to trade the rooks off. My opponent obliges. And in this position, one of the things I do know about queen endgames is you have to be a little bit careful to bring your king out too quickly, because the king can quickly become a target for the enemy queen. So instead, my opponent played a6, and I played the move queen to f3, targeting this pawn, threatening to trade on f6, but also stopping the checks on f5. After king to b8, I played h3, trying to trade the queen on g4. And after this move, what I could have considered was the move queen to g4. However, after this position, I thought that my opponent is going to get in a little bit quickly. Apparently, the move here is, sorry, not f5, but b5, which further restricts my king. If I try and come up a5, my king is entirely locked out. But we had queen to c3 check, king to d7, queen to f3. And in this position, my opponent was very, very low on the clock. They had used their entire time. I had 7 minutes and 17 seconds left. And when my opponent moved to e7, I played queen a3. They moved back, and pretty quickly, I took my draw by threefold repetition against a player 200 points higher than me. I feel pretty good about this draw. I got into maybe a little bit of trouble. I got a little antsy out of the opening. I lost my whole advantage, but fortunately, I didn't lose the game. Now, in the second game for this week, the 90 plus 30, I played Mr. Scribbles, who I've never gotten a chance to play, but was actually one of my teammates in the Lichess 45-45 League for Season 45. Now, the one thing I knew about Scribbles heading into this game is he is an avid gambit player. He learns each and every gambit. He loves the lines. He definitely delves into them. So I knew at some point that he was going to sacrifice material or a pawn or something on me. But there was way too much to learn, and I just went into it. So my opponent shocked me already with d4. I know that since he knows I play the Caro-Kann, I somewhat expected that he was going to go into a variation like this, where if I bring the knight out, he comes here, and if h6, in the style of the alien gambit, sacrificing the knight on f7. Instead, d4, d5, e4, gambiting the pawn. And I sat in this position, and I didn't know what the gambit was. It's move 2, and I already don't know what I'm doing, which is always a great start. So I opted to take the gambit head on and say, hey, show me what you got. So he played knight to c3, and in this position, I took some time, and I ended up coming up with the move e5, with the whole idea that if my opponent takes, I'm going to go queen takes, I have to imagine knight takes, and then I'm going to start developing my pieces, trying to target this weak pawn on e5. However, after e5, he played knight g to e2, and I thought for a little bit, and I ended up playing the move bishop to b4. For a very long time here, I was considering the move f5, which then defends my e-pawn, allows me to bring my knight out behind my pawns, and then bring my pieces out. But for some reason, I think the reason I declined this move f5 was I just didn't like the idea of opening up this diagonal to my king. Now, with the move knight g to e2, it's much less of a threat, and I probably should have identified that, but when I sat down to play this game, I really wasn't probably feeling like I was playing my best chess. So, bishop to b4, pins the knight so it can't take this pawn. Bishop to e3, I played knight to e7, just developing another piece, and after a3, I played bishop to a5, maintain the pin. b4 comes out, and here I play bishop to b6, putting another attacker on the d4 pawn, and hoping that I can get out of this opening, maintaining the pawn that Scribbles had gambited, and hopefully forcing an endgame. Now, Scribbles went knight captures e4. At this point, I played the move knight to f5 because I thought that there was some annoying tactics by targeting this bishop. I should have considered castling just to get my king out of the center right away, and I also could have considered the move once again f5. F5 was on my radar for quite a while, and the reason I declined it was I actually didn't know what to do after knight to c5. Now, the engine says that you can ignore that. You just play the move f4, bishop to d2, and then knight b to c6. I did not see this variation. I truly was kind of at a loss for what to do next in this position, so that is why I played the move knight to f5. He played bishop to d2. And in this position, the way I keep my advantage, because you notice it's slowly starting to grow, is I had to find the move either queen to h4 or knight to c6. And I think both of these are instructive in their own way, where both of them are developing a piece into an active square where it's able to contribute to the attack, instead of me getting greedy and just taking off a pawn. Now, after knight captures d4, I played the move queen captures d4, threatening the rook in the corner, threatening this knight, and also threatening the f2 square a little bit, although it is currently defended. And I thought here that I had a really nice attack because I had blitzed out the move queen captures d4. And if you notice from our clocks, we have both already burnt about 40 minutes of our time in 10 moves. So Scribbles found the defensive move bishop to d3, holding on to this knight, which holds on to the pawn, and the queen holds on to the rook. Here I got a little bit greedy, and I blitzed out the move f5, trying to remove the defender. I also, once again, could have just developed my knight. I could have played moves like bishop to e6. I could have done developing moves and probably been just fine in this position. But instead, after f5, we had bishop to c3, tempoing my queen, playing a danger levels type move. And here, I miscalculated. I looked at the move queen d8, which is the most obvious move in the position, is you just get your queen out of the way, you give up this pawn, but you're also attacking the knight, so you can't quite take it yet. I will show you guys the line I thought I had. I thought after takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, bishop takes here, rook to the corner, pawn takes, queen takes, and castles. In this position, you have 3 pieces for the queen, which should be slightly better for the side with 3 pieces. I've never played this type of position before, and I thought it would be a little bit fun, especially against this player who him and I have chatted back and forth quite a bit. Now, what's unfortunate is in this line, after f captures e4, bishop captures d4, and bishop captures d4, tempoing the rook and the bishop, the correct move, which Scribbles found, was the simple move, bishop captures e4. And in this position, I am no longer going to get the piece back, and now I'm only getting 2 pieces for the queen. So, bishop captures a1, queen captures a1, and it's 2 pieces plus an exchange. So here, I castled. My opponent castled. I played the move c6, trying to blunt the bishop, and I knew I was lost in this point, but I wanted to play on. There's always a chance that something can happen and someone blunders. It's not that I don't think my opponent can't convert this position, as I know they certainly can. And here, they did exactly what I expected, is they took the pawn on e5. I played knight to d7, tempoing the queen, queen to d4, and knight to b6, putting my knight on a square where it's going to defend the a7 pawn so I can activate my rook, also creating a square for me to bring out my bishop on the c8 square. And once again, as has happened on the channel before, is move 18. I still have pieces on their starting squares. My rooks aren't connected. So it's another example of where I went for an attack when I really should have just focused on development and played the middle game from there. So after f4, which I thought weakened the king a little bit, I played bishop to g4, trying to go after this square. Bishop to d3, rook a to d8, tempoing the queen, queen to c5, rook f to e8, just making sure that all 4 of my pieces that are left are as active as possible. And after the move f5, I played the move bishop to e2. Bishop to e2 is a little bit of a weird move, is typically when you're down material, you don't want to trade. However, what I was trying to do here, and as happened in the game, was I was trying to bring my pieces onto the second rank, so hopefully I can get a draw or I can get some weird situation occurring here. But there's a really nice move here that Scribbles found called f6. f6 attacks my pawn chain. It threatens to bring the queen in. It threatens to have a check on f7, which then leads to promotion and loss of material. So if example, if I, for whatever reason, bring my rook up, f7 check, moves over, and actually queen is checkmate. So I had to play g captures f6, rook captures f6, and here it's unfortunately a little bit too slow to play rook d to d2 because of queen to f8, which once again is a quick checkmate. So instead I played rook to d1, rook f1, excuse me, rook captures f1, king captures f1, and rook to e8. Essentially saying I'm going to try and play an endgame against a queen with a rook and a knight where I'm also down a pawn. It's a losing endgame, but who knows what can happen. Pieces are tricky. He played queen to g5, king to h8, queen to f6, king to g8, and queen to d6. And I already noticed that he was coming to the c7 square, which is going to start winning my material here on the queen side. So after rook to f8, king e2, rook e8, king d3, and rook to e3, this was kind of the fun move of the game. It's very tricky. If my opponent were to take, I have the move knight to c4, which then wins the queen, and this is a winning endgame because you are up the piece. The tricky part here is making sure that your opponent's king does not get all the way in and win all your pawns. But he's much smarter than that. He had 24 minutes to find the correct move. It took him 1 minute to play king to d4. There's no more checks for the rook, so I have to play rook to e8. Queen comes into c7. And now I have to give up the pawn because there's no other way for me to hold on to material. I played knight to c8 defending. Queen to c6, rook to f4, trying to get some kind of fork on the king. After king to e3, rook to f8, c4, knight b6, c5, knight c8. Queen e6 comes in. It's attacking everything, so I can't block with the rook because otherwise my knight falls with check. Opponent plays king to d4, rook d8, king c4, rook f8. And what you can see here is really, really nice endgame technique by my opponent. Is even with all these checks, they're keeping their queen active, which restricts my king, and they're bringing their king in to get to this last pawn. Now, king to g7, queen to d7 check. I once again can't block because of the same thing where I would hang a knight. So instead, I'm forced to play king to c6, king to g8, king c6, rook f6, king b7. And king b7 is a really, really cool move because even after rook to f7, which technically wins the queen, queen captures f7, king captures f7, and king captures c8. And my opponent gives up the queen for the two pieces for a completely winning pawn endgame. King e7, king b7. And the path is just paved for our opponent to go ahead and queen. And the way that Scribbles went on here was he promoted a second queen and then very promptly marched me on down the board. And on the 67th move, delivered a classic ladder mate with the two queens. So in this week, I ended up with half a point out of 2. I played 2 opponents who were stronger than I am, one by 100 points and one by 200 points. So I can't be too mad at the results. It definitely gave me a lot of learning experience, and this series game in particular against Mr. Scribbles it's a reminder that you don't need to play anything fancy. You don't need to know the opening theory. If you just develop your pieces, you're going to get into a fine position, and from there you can play. And because I got greedy and I tried to, I had, 1, 2, 3 knight moves to trade it off for another knight, which is less active, I'm already in a worse position. These games are learning experiences. That's how we improve as players. It's how we continue to raise up the rating ladder. So if you guys are interested in playing in the league, definitely check the description because I do put the registration links for the league. Currently, there is registration for the 45-45 league, at least at the time of posting. And I believe the Lone Wolf League also accepts registrations year long. So if you have comments on how I played or what I can do to improve, leave it on down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. And then finally, subscribe to the channel. And that just helps you make sure you don't miss any of my future content. And on that note, I will see you guys on the next day.